The chandelier above the Astoria looked shimmered across the marble floor as Journey St. James weaved through the ballroom, balancing 3 champagne flutes on a silver tray. Her uniform clung tight, her feet sore from 4 hours of serving New York's elite. At 24, she had mastered invisibilitizing only when someone needed a refill. But tonight wasn't normal. The charity gala buzzed with power. Art sold for 6 figures, gowns sparkled with wealth, and whispered deals carried more weight than the paintings on the wall. Journey passed by snippets of conversation. Zayden Knight's merger is genius. Man's changing the entire tech game. Table 7 needed refills. Lorraine Pettis, her supervisor, delivered the command with a stare that didn't tolerate mistakes. Journey nodded and headed through the maze of expensive shoes and judgmental stares. Then everything unraveled. A server clipped her shoulder mid-stride. The tray tilted. The flutes crashed. Journey stumbled forward, right into a tall man in a black tux. Her arms flew around his neck. His hands gripped her waist. Cameras flashed. Conversations stopped. And in the middle of it all, she stared into eyes cold as steel. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "Don't move," he said, deep and quiet. He held her eyes locked on her face. His presence swallowed the room. Jawline sharp, hair perfect, skin smooth, he looked like a man born for power. The security guard approached. "Sir, are you all right?" "We're fine," the man answered, still holding her. Journey blinked. Then, realization hit. Zaydn Knight. The billionaire tech genius. She'd crashed into the most powerful man in the room. "You're him," she breathed, "Zayden Knight." His mouth twitched into a half-smile. "And you are Journey St. James, and I'm probably about to get fired." That would be unfortunate. The cameras wouldn't stop. She tried to step away, but he didn't let go. "People are staring," she said under her breath. "Let them." "What do you do, Journey, when you're not crashing into billionaires?" "I'm an artist," she replied. "Trying to be. Right now, I serve drinks." "What kind of art?" "Paintings, oils, and acrylics." He studied her like he was seeing something no one else did. But the moment snapped when a sharp voice cut through the air. "Zayden, what's going on here?" "Sloane Whitaker, silver gown, cold eyes, posture like royalty." Journey knew her from magazines. The one everyone expected Zayden to marry. "Just a small accident," he said. "Shouldn't you be working, dear?" Sloane added, eyes cutting through Journey's uniform. "I was," Journey said calmly. "Then I learned billionaires make decent crash pads." Zayden almost smiled. Sloane didn't. "We should return to the auction," Sloane said. In a moment, Zayden replied. "I'm in the middle of something." The tension wrapped around all 3 of them. Journey tried to step out of it. "Mr. Knight, I really need to get back. My supervisor's going to lose it." Lorraine was across the room, frozen with wide eyes. "Actually," Zayden said, his tone shifting, "I have a better idea." He turned to the reporters. "Everyone," he called, voice steady and clear. "This is Journey St. James. My girlfriend." Gasps rippled. Phones rose, flashbulbs exploded. "What?" she whispered. Reporters scrambled. People whispered. "Zayden, what are you doing?" Sloane demanded. "Introducing my girlfriend," he replied. "We've been private, but it's time to go public." Journey stared at him in disbelief. He took her hand, firm but calm. He was performing, and silently telling her to go along. "We met at a gallery," he said. "Journey's art is powerful. She sees things in the city most people ignore." He spoke it like truth, and everyone bought it. "How romantic," Sloane said, voice sharp. "Sometimes beauty comes from unexpected places," Zayden said, tightening his arm around Journey. She looked up at him. Nothing about this night made sense. But whatever this wasit had just begun, Zayden led Journey out of the ballroom, his hands still around her waist. Phones followed them. People whispered. Flashbulbs trailed behind like sparks. The second they reached the quiet of the hotel lobby, he finally let her go. "What just happened?" she asked, her voice low but charged. "You saved me," he said. brushing non-existent dust off his sleeve, by body slamming you with champagne. He looked at her, the intensity in his eyes cutting through the luxury around them. Victorious, about to corner me. That little moment, it gave me the perfect out. She folded her arms. You announced I was your girlfriend to the entire city. You didn't think to ask me first. He tilted his head slightly. You crashed into me first. That doesn't give you the right to drag me into your billionaire soap opera. It does if I turn a PR disaster into the best headline of the year, he said. Journey stared, caught between wanting to cuss him out and being weirdly impressed by the sheer audacity. What even is this? Some kind of ploy to get back at your ex? It's not about Sloane. It's about a merger our families have been pushing for years. Tonight was supposed to be the soft launch of our engagement. Supposed to be, she echoed. He nodded. I never agreed, but everyone assumed I would. Your accident gave me a different path, and you thought perfect. I'll just pretend the server I've never met is my girlfriend. He didn't flinch. It worked. That's not the point. He studied her like he was waiting for her to finish yelling. Then, slowly, he said, I'm going to make you an offer. She blinked. A what now? Dinner. Tomorrow night. My penthouse. No cameras. No surprises. I'll explain everything, and if we can agree on the terms, I think this could benefit us both. Terms? Is this a business pitch now? I told you, I think quickly. This accident might solve both of our problems. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. A message from Lorraine. Get back here. Mr. Marks wants to see you. Now. She held up the screen. My supervisor's probably 2 seconds from firing me. Zayden pulled out his own phone. Let me handle it. What's his name? You don't have to. What's his name? She sighed. Mr. Eugene Marks. He was already dialing. Mr. Marks, this is Zayden Knight. Yes, the Zayden Knight. I understand one of your servers, Journey St. James, is working tonight's event. She just handled a delicate situation with more professionalism than most of your executive staff. I'd like her recognized and retained. He ended the call and looked back at her. Problem solved. You're not getting fired. You're getting promoted and moved to your company's premium events list. She just stared. How do you money talks, he said, and I have a lot of it. Journey didn't know whether to thank him or scream. This is insane. I agree. I need time to think. He reached into his tux jacket and pulled out a card. My personal number's on the back. Call me tomorrow. She took it. Their fingers brushed. That same electric jolt from before hit again. This time, it was unmistakable. Journey, he said, voice softer now. I know this feels like a mess, but I'm not the villain in this story. She looked at him, eyes sharp. Then who is? He turned his head toward the ballroom. That remains to be seen. He walked off without another word, his footsteps echoing through the marble lobby. Journey clutched the card, heart pounding, brain racing. She had come to the Astoria Looks, hoping to pick up a few extra shifts to cover her rent. In 30 minutes, she had become the rumored girlfriend of the most private billionaire in the country, and social media was probably already melting down. Her phone buzzed again, alerts from platforms she hadn't opened in months. She looked at the screen. Then, up at the hallway, Zayden had disappeared down. What the hell just happened? But in her chest, under the panic and chaos, something else was blooming. Something wild, something dangerous, excitement. And she already knew tomorrow she'd call. Journey woke up to the sound of her phone buzzing non-stop. Sunlight cut through the thin curtains of her cramped studio apartment, falling across stacked canvases, scattered brushes, and the heap of clothes at the foot of her bed. She groaned and reached for her phone, half hoping last night had been some surreal dream. It WASN, single quotes, type 17 missed calls, 43 unread messages, dozens of notifications from social media apps she hadn't used since college. At the top was a message from her best friend, Imani Reg. Journey, Marie St. James, call me right now. You're on the front page of the New York Post. Her stomach flipped. She opened the news app. There it was. Tech titans, Secret romance. Zayden Knight goes public with mystery girlfriend. Under the headline was a photo. The photo of her wrapped in Zayden's arms. Eyes wide, face close to his, looking like she belonged there. She looked good. The lighting caught the gold in her curls and made her green-brown eyes sparkle. Zayden looked even better, gazing down at her like he'd just found the woman of his dreams. Before she could scroll further, her phone rang. His name flashed across the screen. Zayden Knight. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello, good morning, beautiful." His voice rolled in smooth and warm, like rich velvet. "I take it you've seen the morning headlines. I'm currently staring at a photo of myself that's been seen by half the planet," she said. "This is unreal." "Welcome to my world," he said. "How are you handling the attention?" "I haven't left my apartment." "Smart choice. There are probably photographers waiting outside. I'm sending a car for you at 10. "A car? Where are we going?" "My penthouse. We need to talk about our situation. Privately, over brunch." She opened her mouth to respond, but he had already hung up. An hour later, Journey stood in front of her closet, holding the only dress she owned that wasn't wrinkled. She slipped it on, tied her curls into a bun, threw on lip gloss, and waited at the curb like she didn't feel completely out of place. When the sleek black town car pulled up, the driver stepped out, opened the door, and greeted her by name. The city flew past in a blur. As they turned onto the Upper East Side, the buildings grew taller, shinier, colder. She barely registered the doorman or the private elevator ride that glided like air. When the doors opened directly into Zayden's penthouse, she had to stop herself from gasping. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park. The furniture looked like it belonged in a museum. Everything was soft whites, deep grays, and subtle gold, modern, sleek, and intimidatingly perfect. "You made it," Zayden said, walking in from the kitchen wearing a crisp white shirt and dark jeans. He looked less like a billionaire and more like someone who knew exactly how attractive he was and didn't care. Journey said, looking around. "Intense, controlled, expensive, slightly terrifying." He laughed. "I'll work on that." The dining table was already set, fresh fruit, buttery pastries, and coffee that smelled like a dream. But Zayden didn't sit. "We should talk first," he said, picking up a tablet from the counter. He handed it to her. Every news outlet was covering the story. The headlines ranged from romantic to suspicious to downright insane. From Paint to Power, the Cinderella story of Journey St. James, Knight's queen, who is the woman who stole Zayden's heart. She put the tablet down. "So this is real now." "It is if we want it to be." She looked at him. "You're not doing this just for the press. What's the real reason?" He walked to the window and stood with his hands in his pockets. 3 years ago, I inherited Nighttech after my father passed. 30,000 people work under my name. The board's been on my back ever since. Why? I'm 29. Some of them have been in business longer than I've been alive. They see me as unstable, wild. They want control, and they think marrying someone like Sloane would calm that image. She checks all their boxes, rich, powerful, connected. But I don't want a merger disguised as a marriage. When I marry, it'll be for love, not strategy. Journey's heart caught at that. She tried not to let it show. "So where do I come in?" she asked. He looked at her directly. "You're the opposite of Sloane. You're honest, creative, grounded. You didn't ask me for anything when you found out who I was. You were more worried about your job than my bank account." She stayed quiet. "I want to make you a proposal," he continued. "Be my girlfriend publicly for 6 months. Come with me to events. Help me convince the world I'm settled, stable, serious. In return, I'll give you $50,000. A private studio to work in, and direct introductions to gallery owners and collectors." She inhaled hard. That money would pay off all her debt. It would fund her art career. It would buy her freedom. "There would be rules," he said. "When we're in public, we act the part. Affection, appearances. But in private, we're honest. No pretending. And what happens after 6 months? We break up publicly, respectfully. You get your money and contacts. I get the time I need to prove myself to the board. Journey stood and walked to the windows. The city moved beneath her like another world. She had barely survived here for 4 years. Now, she had a lifeline. Why me? She asked. He stepped closer. Because when you looked at me, you didn't see a billionaire. You saw a man about to fall and you tried to catch him. She turned around, surprised by the rawness in his voice. And, he added, you stood up to Sloane Whitaker without blinking. That takes either guts or stupidity. In my experience, those two things usually come together. They stood in silence, neither one backing down. If I say yes, she said finally, I want my own conditions. Name them: total honesty. No secrets, no manipulation. Agreed. I keep my independence. I'm not some PR prop. I wouldn't want you to be. If one of us wants out early, we end it clean. No mess, no public drama. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal, Miss St. James? She looked at his hand. She knew touching it would change everything. One more thing, she said. What if we actually fall for each other? His face grew serious. Then we deal with that when it happens. She placed her hand in his. Deal. 3 months into the arrangement, Journey had learned to live 2 lives. By day, she was Zayden Knight's elegant, composed girlfriend, arm on his, smile flawless, presence polished. By night, she returned to the private studio he provided, and for the first time in years, painted without worrying about rent or rejection. At first, it felt like acting. Now, it was harder to tell where the role ended and her real feelings began. You're distracted tonight, Zayden said, as they stepped out into the sculpture garden behind the Museum of Modern Art. The gala was winding down. The buzz of donors and influencers still lingered in the background, but they had slipped away for air. Journey clasped her hands behind her back. Just thinking. About what? How wild this is. 3 months ago, I couldn't afford canvas. Now, I'm discussing postmodern sculpture in a dress that costs more than my car. He walked beside her, hands in his pockets. Do you miss it? My old life, he nodded. Parts of it, simplicity, mostly. When you're broke, your biggest problem is survival. Now I worry about the press catching me with the wrong expression or saying the wrong thing at a fundraiser. I worry about what happens if I mess up and ruin your reputation. Zayden stopped walking. I don't care what people say. I trust you. Journey looked up at him. He rarely said things like that. He was always in control, always composed. But tonight, his voice was soft, almost vulnerable. There's something I need to tell you, he began. But before he could continue, his phone buzzed. One glance, and the calm left his face. We need to go, now. What's wrong? Sloane just called for an emergency board meeting tomorrow morning. He didn't say more as they left the garden and rode in silence back to the penthouse. But Journey knew enough about corporate warfare to understand what that meant. Sloane didn't make moves unless she had something real. What can she do? Journey asked as they stepped into the living room. That depends on what she knows. He tore off his tie and tossed it on the couch. He rarely looked flustered. Tonight, he did. She's been too quiet since the photos of us went viral. That's not her style. You think she knows the relationship is fake? I think Sloane Whitaker will do anything to win. If she's calling a meeting, she's planning to strike. The next morning, grey clouds hovered over the city. Journey stood at the window, arms crossed, watching raindrops slide down the glass. Zayden had already left, kissing her forehead on his way out. The gesture was so gentle it had stunned her. Not performative, not calculated, just real. She was reviewing a canvas delivery when her phone rang. Unknown number, Miss St. James. This is Terrence Vaughan from the New York Herald. I was hoping we could meet for coffee. Her instincts kicked in. I don't give interviews without my publicist. This isn't about an interview. It's about Sloane Whitaker and what she's planning to reveal today at Night Tech's board meeting. Her body went cold. I don't know what you're talking about. I've been investigating strategic marriages and corporate manipulation for months. I have documents suggesting your relationship with Mr. Knight isn't what it seems. That's ridiculous. Meet me at Calf Crescent in an hour. If I'm wrong, you walk away. If I'm right, you'll want to hear everything." He hung up. An hour later, she sat across from him in a small cafe in Greenwich Village, rain still dripping from her coat. Terence was younger than she expected, early 30s maybe. With clear eyes behind simple wire-framed glasses. "Sloane Whitaker hired a private investigator 3 months ago," he said, sliding a folder across the table. Inside were photos, her and Zayden at various events. Her entering and leaving the studio, her at the hotel, alone, working, painting. She knows everything. Where you live, where you work, that you never officially moved in with Zayden. Journey's mouth went dry. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because she's going to present this evidence to the board today. She's going to accuse you both of deception, of faking a relationship to manipulate public trust and investor confidence. That kind of scandal could ruin both your careers. And you want to break the story first." He shook his head. "No, I want to help you. I've followed Zayden Knight's career for years. He's one of the few CEOs I actually believe has a conscience. And I've been watching you too." She tensed. "Not like that. I've seen how you treat people. The way you talk to staff at galas, how you support young artists in your interviews. How you avoid the spotlight when you could use it to climb. You're not a fraud. You care. Maybe more than you realize." Journey didn't answer. She was afraid if she opened her mouth, she'd confirm too much. "I also spoke to your best friend, Imani Ray." Her head snapped up. "What?" she said. "You've been in love with Zayden Knight since the second week. You just won't admit it." Heat rushed to her face. She had no right. "She's worried. She said you've changed. That you light up when you talk about him. Even when you're trying not to." "It doesn't matter now," Journey said, standing. "If Sloane exposes us, it's over. He'll lose the company. I'll be branded a gold digger." "Not necessarily," Terence said. "What if you told the truth, all of it, on your terms?" She paused. "What do you mean?" "Let me record an exclusive interview. Be honest. Say it started as an arrangement, but evolved into something real. Make it a love story instead of a scandal. You want me to admit to fraud. I want you to tell the truth about falling in love." Journey's breath caught. "Zayden will never forgive me for going public without him. He's about to walk into a professional ambush. Don't you think he deserves to know someone's fighting for him?" She thought about Zayden's quiet strength. His belief in her art, his hand on her back when she was anxious, his voice in her ear when she couldn't breathe. "If I do this," she said slowly, "I'm adding one more thing." "What?" "I want to propose to him, publicly, for real." Terence blinked. "That's either the boldest or craziest thing I've ever heard." "Probably both," she said. "But if I'm going down, it's going to be for something that matters." 2 hours later, Terence Vaughan's exclusive interview with Journey St. James went live. The headline was simple but explosive. "The Truth About Love, Journey St. James speaks out about her real relationship with Zayden Knight." In the video, Journey didn't hold back. She admitted that the relationship had started as a mutual agreement. She spoke clearly, without a hint of shame, and her voice carried every ounce of truth she had kept buried for months. She described how she met Zayden by accident, how he pulled her into his world, and how, over time, it stopped being a performance. She told them about the Zayden. The world didn't see the man who remembered his employees' birthdays, who called his grandmother every Sunday, who stood by her art even before it had value. She told them how it felt to be looked at like she mattered for more than her background or her beauty. She spoke about falling for a man who was brilliant, complicated, and more human than the headlines would ever allow. And then, right at the end, she said it. "I want to propose to him. Not because of a contract, not because of money or media, but because I love him. And if the world wants a headline, I'll give them that one." The internet caught fire. #JourneyNZaydn trended globally. TikTok stitched her confession with love stories. Instagram filled with quotes from her video. Twitter flooded with messages calling it the most honest, vulnerable, and romantic celebrity moment of the year. Even Wall Street took notice. Night-tech stock soared 12% in after-hours trading. Analysts credited it to unprecedented levels of personal authenticity from the CEO. Journey, meanwhile, paced back and forth in her studio. Her stomach twisted with every notification. She had no idea how Zayden would react. What she'd done was bold, maybe reckless, definitely dangerous, but it was hers, and she wasn't taking it back. She was mid-stride when the door opened. Zayden stood in the threshold, his expression unreadable. "I assume you've seen the interview," she said. He nodded once. So did every board member, the press, and probably every high school sweetheart I've ever had. She swallowed. "I can explain. Sloane's meeting was a disaster," he cut in. Journey froze. She walked in ready to tear us apart. She had files, surveillance, everything. She stood there, smug, holding her evidence like a weapon. And the moment she opened her mouth, your interview dropped. Right then, on the projector, in front of everyone, she blinked. Zed stepped closer. "You dismantled her before she even started. Are you mad?" "I'm furious." Her heart dropped. "I'm furious that it took the threat of scandal for you to finally admit how you feel." Journey stared at him. "You meant it?" he asked, stepping so close she could feel his breath. "What you said? About falling in love with me?" She nodded. "Every word. Even the part about wanting to marry you, especially that part." He cupped her face in both hands, his thumbs brushing her cheeks. "Journey St. James, you are the most stubborn, unpredictable, and extraordinary woman I've ever met. Is that a yes? I've been in love with you since the night you crashed into my life. I was too scared to admit it." He kissed her slow, deep, real, not for the cameras. Not for a press release. Just them. Months of emotion poured out in that one kiss. Months of restraint, longing, tension, and everything they hadn't dared to say. When they finally pulled back, she whispered, "So, is the arrangement officially over?" He smiled against her lips. "Definitely. But we're writing a new contract." "What are the terms?" "Lifetime, no expiration, no out clause." "You sure?" "I've never been more certain." She kissed him again. They were no longer pretending. This was real, messy, beautiful. The kind of love you don't find twice. 6 months later, Journey St. James stood in front of a mirror in a room draped with ivory silk and soft golden light. Her hair was styled in elegant waves, her gown a vision she had designed herself, sleek, modern, with intricate beaded detailing that flowed like water. She had chosen every stitch, every fold, every thread to reflect her journey. The reflection, looking back at her, wasn't the invisible hotel server from a year ago. It was a woman who had fought for her future, for her art, and for her love. Today, she would become Journey Night. Outside, the world waited. The wedding was the most talked about event in the country. Invitations had gone out to senators, business moguls, and artists. The ceremony was being held at an art museum in Harlem. Zayden's idea. It was where they had first attended an exhibit together, where he saw her more clearly than anyone ever had. Imani Ray adjusted Journey's veil, holding back tears. "Girl, you're about to change your last name and your tax bracket." Journey laughed. "I still remember when I couldn't afford canvas. And now, your paintings sell out before the ink on the exhibit signs dries." The music shifted. A knock at the door. A wedding coordinator peeked in. "It's time." Outside, Zayden stood at the altar in a custom black tuxedo, trimmed with dark velvet. He wore no tie, no flashed, just confidence, love, and the look of a man who had stopped pretending a long time ago. Behind him, the wedding decor told their story. Paintbrushes intertwined with microchips in the floral centerpieces. Neon quotes from their first public interview lit the walls. It wasn't a billionaire's wedding, it was theirs. Journey walked down the aisle to the sound of violins playing an orchestral version of Adore You. People stood. Phones didn't rise. Zayden had made it clear this ceremony was sacred, private, untouched by cameras. When she reached him, he didn't look away once. He didn't blink. He just breathed like he'd been holding it in 4 months. "You ready?" she whispered. "I've been ready since you fell into my arms." The vows were raw. Honest, Zayden promised to protect her soul before her image. To love her when things were quiet, not just when the world was loud. Journey promised to believe in him when the headlines didn't. To remind him of his humanity when the boardroom tried to erase it. When the officiant announced them as husband and wife, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. At the reception, Zayden gave a toast. "Thank you all for being here, but I want to thank one person in particular. Journey taught me that not everything valuable can be measured in stock value or strategy. Sometimes, the most powerful move you can make is choosing love over fear." Journey took the mic next. He showed me that not all stories start with fairy dust. Some start with spilled champagne, a lie that becomes the truth, and a man who remembered my art before I remembered my worth. In the crowd, Terence Vaughan stood with his press badge tucked in his jacket pocket. He wasn't reporting today, he was a guest. Imani clinked glasses with him. That proposal, by the way, iconic. Even Sloane Whitaker was there draped in emerald, her expression distant but no longer cruel. She approached Journey during the cake cutting, offered her hand, and said, "You played your role better than I ever could have imagined," and it turns out, it wasn't a role at all. Journey didn't respond with shade. She nodded. "Some things just happen on purpose." Sloane nodded once. "Congratulations." The night ended with dancing laughter, and the kind of joy that no scandal could erase. Board members whispered to each other. Watching Zayden on the dance floor, spinning his wife like she was his entire universe. "He's changed," one of them said, "more focused, happier, more stable." Another agreed. Exactly what the company needed. They didn't realize the truth. It wasn't the company that had gained stability. It was the man. And he'd found it in the arms of a woman who had once just wanted to serve drinks without getting fired. Now, she was his entire legacy. The honeymoon faded, but their story didn't. 6 weeks after the wedding, Zayden and Journey returned to a new rhythm one no camera could capture. There were no press conferences, no grand gestures, just quiet mornings, late-night studio visits, and real-life complications. Journey's art exploded in value. Galleries booked her out a year in advance. Collectors who once ignored her now offered 5-figure commissions. But it wasn't the fame that fed her. It was freedom. The freedom to paint without fear. To create without apologizing. To speak boldly without shrinking. Zayden noticed it every day. "You're different now," he said one evening, watching her work barefoot in their home studio. "I'm just more myself," she replied. "I finally feel like I'm allowed to take up space." She said it without bitterness, without resentment. But Zayden heard it anyway. The years she spent making herself small to survive. He moved beside her, wrapped his arms around her from behind, rested his chin on her shoulder. "You've always had the right to take up space. I just get to witness it now." They stood like that until the paint dried. Zaydn had changed to not in public there. He was still brilliant, composed, always 10 steps ahead. But at home, he laughed more, he slept better. He started playing jazz records again. He talked about his late father without shutting down. And sometimes, when he thought no one was watching, he'd stare at Journey like he still couldn't believe she said yes. But marriage didn't erase reality. One morning, Zayden walked into the living room with his phone tight in his grip. "We need to talk," he said. Journey looked up from her sketchbook. "What is it?" He passed her the screen. It was a press leak, a story brewing. Anonymous sources claim Knight's marriage is a long-term PR stunt. Journey's stomach turned. "They're still coming for us." He nodded. "This one's different. They're quoting a former board member. Claims we never lived together before the wedding, that the whole love story was constructed." She read further. "They're trying to make us the scandal again. I can bury it legally. Shut it down fast. But what? I don't want to keep living our truth in secret. Not anymore." Journey closed the tablet. Then let's show them. Later that night, she posted a video from her studio. No makeup, no lighting, just her voice, soft and steady. Our story started messy. It wasn't scripted. But love doesn't need clean beginnings to be real. We've already proven everything. We need to prove to the world, the rest of this story is ours. Within hours, #ThisIsLove trended across platforms. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. Zaydn didn't follow up with a press statement. He posted a photo journey asleep on his chest. Her paint-streaked fingers curled into his shirt. The caption read, "No more performances, just this." From then on, they stopped feeding the headlines. They didn't correct rumors. They didn't explain timelines. They just lived. They still had fights. About work, about space, about who left the oat milk out. But every disagreement ended with truth. Every silence broke with effort. They made mistakes, then made it right. Journey's success didn't shrink Zaydn. Zaydn's power didn't dim Journey. They grew, side by side, stubborn and soft in equal measure. And every time one of them looked in the mirror, they didn't see a billionaire or a social climber. They saw two people who collided by accident, chose to stay on purpose. Journey stood in the middle of her solo exhibit, surrounded by the faces of strangers and the work of her soul. The gallery was packed, critics whispered, buyers circled. Her paintings, large, raw, layered with emotion, hung on every wall, telling the story of a woman who had finally learned to live out loud. But beneath the praise, behind the soft smile she wore all evening, something gnawed at her. "What's wrong?" Zaydn asked, as they stepped outside into the cool night air. His arm wrapped around her waist like it belonged there. The limo waited at the curb. Paparazzi flashes burst behind them. But she didn't move. "I should be happy," she said. "This was my dream. All of it. But I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "That it's all too good. That I don't deserve it. That I'll lose it." He turned her gently to face him. "Journey, you're not a fluke. You didn't stumble into this. You fought for it. You earned every second." "I didn't fight alone. I didn't carry you," he said. "I chose you. You chose me. This wasn't luck, it was alignment." She looked up at him. "But what if we mess this up?" "We will," he said. "That's what people do." But love isn't about being flawless. It's about showing up. Even when it's hard. That night, they lay in bed, limbs tangled, no words needed. But the fear didn't vanish. Journey's insecurities lingered, whispering in quiet moments. She saw it when critics credited her success to Zaydn's name. When old classmates asked if she still pretended to paint. When socialites at events called her a lucky girl like she hadn't bled for her talent. Zaydn saw the weight she carried. And he hated that he couldn't protect her from all of it. One night, while she worked on a commission piece, she didn't speak for hours. When he finally approached her, she was staring at a blank canvas, tears sitting heavy in her eyes. "I don't know who I am outside of us," she said quietly. "What if all this success fades? What if I'm only strong when you're beside me?" He knelt beside her. "Then I've failed." She looked at him, confused. "I fell in love with the woman who stood up to Sloane Whitaker, who turned a fake relationship into the realest thing I've ever known. But if you think your value depends on me, then I haven't reminded you enough of who you are." She dropped her brush. He took her hands, held them tightly. "Journey, you are the story. You're not riding my wave. You created your own current." And slowly, the doubt began to ease. Not because he fixed her, but because he saw her fully, loudly, every day. In the weeks that followed, she started waking up without anxiety, clutching her chest. She reclaimed her art not as a performance, but as a gift. She said no to events she didn't believe in. Yes to teaching a weekend course for inner-city girls who reminded her of herself. Zaydn watched her reclaim her rhythm like he was watching the sun come back after a long storm. He, too, had fierce quiet ones. He rarely admitted that he was too cold. That his mind worked in algorithms, not feelings. That without Journey, he'd slip back into isolation. But she reminded him that love wasn't noise, it was effort. It was him asking her how she wanted her coffee each morning. It was her leaving post-it notes with affirmations on his desk. It was both of them choosing each other again and again. Not perfectly, but honestly. And that honesty became their legacy. The call came just after midnight. Zayden was asleep, his arm wrapped around Journey, when his phone buzzed on the nightstand. He stirred, but didn't move. She reached for it instinctively. Night-tech emergency line. She sat up. Zayden, wake up. He blinked, alert in seconds. What is it? She handed him the phone. He answered, listening in silence for almost a full minute when he hung up. His jaw was tight. There's been a breach. Internal documents leaked to the press. Confidential contracts, strategic projections, merger time. Journey's heart sank. Who did it? They don't know yet, but they're already blaming me. Why you? Because the leak happened through my private network. Within hours, the media was spinning. News outlets speculated that Zayden's personal life had distracted him, that the once brilliant CEO had lost his edge, that marrying an artist had made him too emotional, too careless. Journey's influence has softened him, one anchor said. That's not necessarily a compliment in this industry. She watched the clip on her phone, hands clenched. They're using me to justify their hate. He stood in front of her, stone calm. They've always hated what they couldn't control. Tell me what you need, she said. I need to be who I was before I met you. She flinched. He didn't say it with malice, just truth. I need to be sharp again. I need to close myself off. I need to fix this, and I can't do it if I'm worried about how it's affecting you. She nodded slowly. So what are you saying? I'm saying I need to go to war for my company, and I can't ask you to come with me, so you're cutting me out. I'm trying to protect you. No, she said. You're trying to become the man you were before, me. But that man was brilliant and lonely. You don't have to choose between love and strength. He didn't respond, so she packed a bag, not to leave, but to give him space. Call me when you remember, you don't have to fight this alone. For 3 weeks, they didn't speak. Journey returned to her studio apartment, the one she had kept as a creative retreat. The silence there was sharp. She painted through it. Her brushstrokes changed bolder, angrier. Deeper. Zaydn spent those weeks restructuring security, leading board investigations, and shutting down false narratives. But even in his victories, something was missing. He stopped sleeping, stopped eating properly, stopped hearing the music in anything. One night, he opened a news article about her latest exhibit. The critic had written, Journey St. James no longer paints like someone proving herself. She paints like someone who remembers who she is. And that was it. He left the office, got into his car, drove to the apartment she had retreated to, and knocked on her door. She opened it in a paint-streaked hoodie, eyes puffy but fire still burning behind them. He didn't say anything. He held up a piece of paper. It was a scanned image from her exhibit brochure. On the back, she had written a single sentence in Sharpie. Even a king needs a place to rest his crown. I forgot that, he said, voice low. And I forgot what you gave me that no one else ever did. She stepped back, letting him in. I don't want to protect you by pushing you away, he said. I want to protect you by building something so strong, no one can touch it. She walked up to him. Then let's build it together. He reached for her hand, and she didn't hesitate, because she didn't need him. To be the man he used to be, she needed him to be real. And this time, he knew the difference. 1 year later, Journey stood on the rooftop of the Night-Tech Innovation Center, surrounded by rising artists, entrepreneurs, and scholarship recipients. Zayden's foundation had just announced a $10 million fund to support young creatives and tech minds from underrepresented communities. The event wasn't about press, it was about purpose. And it had started with one question. How do we give what we didn't have? Journey had asked it the night they got back together. It became their compass. Now standing beneath warm evening lights, the city glowing behind them, she watched Zayden take the mic. He wasn't the cold billionaire the world once whispered about. He was magnetic, Warm, still brilliant, but softer, too. My wife once reminded me, he said, that being powerful doesn't mean being alone. That love doesn't weaken a man, it reveals his capacity to build more than money. It gives him a reason to / the crowd applauded. She saw his mother smile through tears. Imani was in the corner filming with her phone, already talking about turning the speech into a documentary segment. Terence Vaughan, now a best-selling author, leaned against the railing beside Journey. You realize people are going to make a movie about you too, right? She smiled. Let them, but they better not leave out the part where I nearly took him out with a tray of champagne. I'll write it in myself, he joked. Later, when the speeches ended and the rooftop cleared, Zayden pulled Journey aside. I have one more announcement, he said, handing her a small wrapped box. Inside was a gold pendant shaped like a brushstroke. At the center, a microchip sliver shimmered. It's the first prototype from the Knight x St. James creative tech line, he said. Wearable devices for artists, voice-activated, AI-assisted, fully sustainable. Designed by us. She stared at him. You're really doing it? We're doing it. They walked to the edge of the rooftop, hand in hand. Below them, the city pulsed. Alive, endless. You ever think about how it started? She asked. I think about it every day. I was terrified. I was frozen. Then you crashed into me, woke me up. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Funny how the worst moment of my life became the best thing that ever happened to. Zayden turned to her. It didn't happen to you. You made it happen. You stood in the fire and didn't run. You didn't fold when the headlines came. You didn't flinch when the world doubted us. She met his eyes. You never asked me to play small. You made space. That's what love is. They stayed. Like that, above the city, two people who had rewritten their story by choosing each other over and over. Journey didn't need a crown to feel powerful. She had her voice, her art, her man. And Zayden didn't need silence to feel safe. He had her fire, her honesty, her hand in his. They had started with a performance, but what they built, every brick of it, was real, unscripted, unbreakable, unforgettable.